So please, you could take the mic. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you so much. I'll go straight to the question. It's interesting, youth and women. And I think perhaps you're also forgetting another group. The SIGs basically also entails persons from marginalized and minority who are also part and parcel. When we talk about youth and women and AI, I always say AI has advantages and disadvantages like any other vice. However, we keep concentrating on the negatives, like my brother said, because of trust issue. We have a trust deficit. But in Africa, the AI has more disadvantages mirrored on things that, again, he mentioned. When we come to finances, yeah, when we come to public trust, when we come to, because as a leader or any person sitting in any capacity, even the electoral bodies, you mirror what the society does. So you find, I can speak for the Kenyan context, the youth, when we saw the Gen Z uprising in Kenya, it was basically because that mirror, the threshold in which we expect society to run, has mirrored down. So it comes, we are asking as young people, why do you tell us that we give this amount of X to IEBC to conduct elections if this is a product? So in as much as AI will be used to do biometrics, will be used to do voter education and civic education, then the question is, how do you now create a nexus between what the ideal AI, the goods it's doing, and then now how do we navigate again on the ills that it's there? One of them being, like I said, the financial aspect, and secondly, it is also the issue of reaching out, because there are areas, like I said, when you talked about youth and women, I'm also concerned about the minority and marginalized, because those are the areas, again, there is no electricity, like Bina has said, even network connectivity. So you're here dealing with the urban, yeah? So the uprising, I agree, was very well articulated in terms of the youth use the AI and social media to garner and advocate for good governance. It went down, even in my profession as an advocate, we are now having structures on how to release the young people arrested for whatever reason for doing their work. So how do we now use that platform to encourage youth and women? For me, it is one, active campaign. Let them go. The active campaign, again, should not be mirrored down to now the urban areas, because you'll find the urban young people, both men and women, and I'll start with the youth, then perhaps move to the women. The youth in Nairobi, let me use that as an example, Nakuru Road, Mombasa, are able to access a smartphone, okay? So they are able to go to ChatGPT anytime, they are able to get the benefits of AI. However, a child or a young person in another marginalized area, let's say Pokot, cannot access the same. So that youth somehow is marginalized from what is happening here. They can only see on TV that the young people are revolting, okay, that this is happening. So how do we now leverage that? One is the active campaign. I still insist on the active campaign. That means more civic education, so that people know what is this elephant called AI. What are the advantages and disadvantages? And I'm grateful to LG and the consortium for assisting Kenyans now get to this. But for me, it's now, it doesn't end here. It moves to going and engaging the youth actively and telling them the advantages and disadvantages. Why that is important? Because you find there's a lot of deep fake information. There's cyberbullying, okay? There's a lot of gutter and information not filtered, again, accessing the platform. So I'll give an example now on women. Women are supposed to be held by the AI. But like Bina said, we are more of consumers, number one. Number two, we are also not using that to our advantage. How? You come up in the morning and put up a post. Most of us are more on social media for our own other things. For example, I'm on social media because maybe I'm a fashion designer. I'm just giving that as an example. But I do not look at it in terms of how does then the AI assist me in terms of as a Kenyan woman who wants to vie. Yes, my background is not perhaps in law or this, but then how do I now put a nexus? So the information is, I post that on Instagram. I'm not keen on what is happening on Twitter. As a young woman, first of all, I'm not very keen. So that's why you see when my sister Shakira came up, there was a lot of excitement. Like, okay, now women. I remember in one of the political forums, they were saying, young women have now decided they'll take up the revolution. because that was unheard of in Africa. We're expecting the old to decide, sorry to say that, and then the young men. They're the ones who go to the streets, whether from the university days going up. Now the rise of young women. But what happens? The young woman, I'll give an example of my sister Bina. She does a good job. What happens the next day? We use the same eye to come and now criticize her and do fake news. So when we do that fake fields and they go round, remember we are not using our chatbots to actually do the civic education. So once she's insulted and a lot of fake information is divulged, one, you anchor that on the law. Already there is cybersecurity threat, number one. Number two, this person has been maligned. By the time Bina tries to ratify that, it's already gone everywhere. So now we are looking at urban. By the time you're going to report or going to say this is wrong, it has gone viral. Even people from African contexts who follow you or who are keen on social media have already picked it up. So by the time you're coming to pick up, it's damage control. Again, there are no structures on now how we can disempower that. So as women, the biggest challenge is we fear. So I am this person X, I would want to come out, but the fact that in electoral matters and in political parties, I fear. The next day, I'll get a lot of backlash from society because I'm a woman. Not because I'm a man, perhaps, but I'll get more backlash than my counterpart who's a man. And so when I see that it has happened to Bina, what do? I pull back. So we do not again utilize as women the chatbots. We don't use AI to do civic education. We don't, even as political parties, we don't use AI to go and do recruitment and talk to our voters and tell our voters what is our party ideology, what do we stand for as a party, or what do we stand for as a country and as a continent, because Africa is still our business. So you find that that has itself mirrored. And so the youth and the women feel that this is not a space we would want to engage, and it is now being used with those who are aware of the disadvantages more. They use it now to make this whole theory look so real. So what happens? A woman in a rural setup or a youth will tell you, you want elections to be done using this methodology of using the voter registration, going the IA way to do the voter registration, or to do the tabulation, or to do the final transmission like you saw. They tell you, no, Upper, it comes with a lot of fake information. We don't trust the process. There'll be voter stashing. They'll use, robots to do this. So look at it. The AI is a good, like I said, it has its benefits, the advantages and disadvantages. But then the disadvantages are broadcasted more so that we forget the advantages. And so there is no mechanism in which now even electoral bodies can work. He gave a classical example of Nigeria. You find that in one aspect it succeeded, in the second aspect it didn't. So what does the role of the youth come in and the women? Because I would want to cluster them. The youth and women are supposed now, because at this day where the digital literacy is a bit high for the youth, this is their era, because they are exposed to this as compared to our parents who grew up without internet connectivity, and digital era is not there. The maximum right now my parent can look at is WhatsApp. So they can just forward and say, I received this. So the young people have an opportunity. How do we encourage them? One, like I said, public participation. Two, let's have the active campaign, even on social media. Because you might not be able to reach masses with a modeled, conference facility. But then, three, get to the top leadership in different aspects. Like the political parties, have the youth leagues and the women leagues now discussing this, so that as they go down, they mirror that information down. Let it be also coming from the point of view that we are now having more chatbots where we can now sensitize the public and the advantages, and again, see how we can decipher the disadvantages. Now on strategy to use IA to do voter education. Voter education, like I said, is more of a civic education. In Kenya, and I can speak for my country, we normally do that towards general election. Before then, we have no time. So towards general election, the civil society groups, the government, with the different ministries, political parties, all of a sudden are now very keen. It's the first time that this is now happening earlier because of, again, the Gen Z. But before then, status quo remains. We keep calm, then we start towards the end. and we start seeing IBC saying kura yako ni sauti yako, you know, and we start now the campaigns and say, oh, the voter education. For me, the strategy is, it's an ongoing process. Each person in an election forum has their own needs on where they want to see democracy mirrored. So as we do the voter education should start, it is a continuous process. My brother Franklin cannot say we will start towards, that's the maximum CMD can do. But it mirrors down, what can political parties do in terms of voter education? And voter education starts from, again, back to the ground. From the leaders who we elect. If they are not doing their duty, then it moves to the different structures. The civil society groups are involved, government agencies are involved, we have also the political parties and leaders, we have grassroots leaders, we have opinion shapers in this country. So it starts from there. So that by the time you're bringing this technology, remember, the voters are not from one generation. We're not looking at only the youth and women who are age 35 and below. We are looking at women and youth and even men, and even the marginalized and minority across all these ages. Remember, all these people will participate in an election. So if they'll participate in an election, you must now come up with strategies to engage the different leagues, because we are Africans. The same way the needs of the women are slightly different from the youth, are slightly different from marginalized. I'll give an example. A person from the marginalized community will come and tell you, we have a problem with electricity and network. For me to make a phone call to someone in Nairobi, I must climb a tree. There is a problem of network coverage. And it happens even in African context. So their needs are different from the ones for the youth and perhaps for the women. So sometimes, and in my experience I've seen, we club these groups together. Then now we speak on one agenda. We want to just go and do voter education. But the needs are different. For me to go and reach out to a youth and a woman in Pokot is different from how I'll do in Nairobi. Nairobi, I only need an X space, and I'll call Bina and a few people, and we'll do the platform. But what about the voter who does not even have network, cannot even go on top of a tree? First of all, does not even have the smartphone. So the voter education, for me, the strategy we should use is have this discussion devolved down, but mirrored even in the political parties, because they are the drivers. Remember, a political party is there to bring change. It's either you're in government to transform the country, or you're a watchdog in the opposition. You cannot be lukewarm. So you choose the path you want to take. But in Africa, we see lukewarm things, but it's okay. So in that mirror that we are in, that you're either in the government or in the opposition, then your mandate should be to assist, empower the leagues. That's why the constitution gave the SIGs in Kenya. So that you have the youth league, you have the women league, you have those ones representing marginalized and minority. So that you now communicate to the needs that are specific. And now bring this monster we call the AI for that discussion. So that way, this person will also make sure it goes to the channels. However, if we leave it in Nairobi, where we come for a conference, which is good, but we are not getting back to now getting the youth and the women to be aware for that. So for me, the first strategy is a multi-sectorial. It's not something LGA can do alone, USAID can do alone, or CMD can do alone. It's a concept that can be done by all stakeholders. Number two is, what is in it for the youth and the women? Because I saw this question cropping up one time, and they said, this whole social media thing, it's not helping us, you know? Africa being the way it is, rule number one is that the people who have money and who have built a name up there, who've served these countries, are the ones that take an upper hand. So you find they're the ones who have the bloggers, the money to pay bloggers, and to do a lot. So they ask you, the youth ask you, what is in it for us? Because at the end of the day, we go through this battle and we get nothing. Number two, for the women, like I said, again, they're a bit scared. If they see Bina has been crucified, they say, we don't want this. So for me, it is the second strategy that I would request, other than now the pool of now consortiums working towards this, a multi-sectorial thing, is that these AI trainings should also mirror to bringing champions who now can champion that from the 47 counties. I'm looking at now Kenyan context, 47 counties, where now you partner also with the Ministry of ICT, because it comes hand in hand. And so this is also mirrored down. And lastly, just before I wind up, is that for me, like I said, I see the advantages of AI. Then the question is, now we have disadvantages. The parting shot for me is, we should now see how best do we address the disadvantages? Like I said, the good always works for us. What we always prepare is for the worst case scenario. So what doesn't work for us? What doesn't work for us? So those are the things, the fake, the deep, you know, but there are beauty things about the chat box that people can engage. We can use biometric registration, which helps you identify. We can use it to tally and know the speed in which the forms are coming in, even in a national tally system where we are doing election. It also shows you the predictions, you know, like the voter registration, it can able to map up and check. If we registered 10,000 Kenyans in polling station X, then the AI can assist us to know where there's duplication. So there's always the good. The question is, if then we are worried about the negatives, which is one, of course, you know, the infiltration, the fake news is moving around, and how it can also impact an electoral system, then how best do we address the negatives? Because the goods already work for us. So for me, this is an active campaign, and I must commend LGR, because it's something that we should keep on engaging, because that's where the world is moving to, the tech area. And the tech area cannot be done by one. That's why in African context, you see, electoral bodies are not the most favorable people in any country. They are seen as the people who have problems, and it goes down to even judges who handle electoral issues. So you're seen as an enemy, but when you look at the structures, it is more of trust deficit and more of lack of civic education. Because you're not telling your people what this system we are introducing is all about. So you expect them to work. You're assuming you talked on TV or radio. Those are the few elites who will understand. There is a woman in the village who is a voter, who does not even understand English. You come and talk to her in English, she won't understand what AI is all about. She'll just say the first thing, they want to steal elections. And it happens. So for me, it's more of civic education, using the same AI, and now showing the beauty about AI as we now strategize to see what laws are we putting in place in terms of legislation as a country and as a continent. And secondly, how best then do we solve the issue of AI in the disadvantaged part. Thank you.
Let's clap for Aisha. Aisha, thank you for shedding light on that aspect, particularly a mention on the SIGs, special interest groups, and then the strategies that may be deployed in order to ensure